Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today, third part of my little lore analysis of version 4.7. If you're wondering what this is, I am an archaeologist and Genshin player who usually does videos on historical references in Genshin, but this time I'm attempting to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to break down the new names we got dropped in the new version and see what we can make out of them. As always, if you think you might like my content, leave me a like, leave me a comment, let me know your thought. Follow me. You can also follow me on HoYoLab. You'll find the link in the description. Before starting, of course, as I said, this will be about version 4.7 bedtime stories. So of course, if you still haven't played the quest and don't want any spoilers, please do not watch this because there will be quite a lot. So, we went through the names of 3 out of the 5 Sinners of Khaenri'ah already. If you happen to have missed part 1 or part 2, you'll find them here. And today, of course, I left the 2 juiciest names for last. We're going to talk about Surtalogi, Skirk's master, and the owner of the novel that almost destroyed Fontaine in version 4.2, and Vedrfolnir, aka the creepy boys in the purple crystal that we met in version 3.5, the one who's probably behind Clotter Alberic getting freed from the curse, and the whole Abyss Order Loom of Fate things. 2 of the nicest guys in Tibet, apparently. Remember how we talked last time about the Ragnarok and how it's kind of emerging as a common theme that could link at least Rerir and Reindatir, who are both linked with the ring cycle, which acts as sort of a prologue for the Ragnarok, so the end of the world, or rather the end of a cycle. Well, turns out that Surtalogi and Vedrfolnir are both linked to the actual Ragnarok myth, so as it is recounted in the Norse sources that we still have at our disposal. And once again, while with Surtalogi the connection is quite simple, you just need to look it up on Wikipedia and you will find that it's actually the name of the sword that the commander of the fire giants, Surt, will brandish on the day of the Ragnarok when the fire giants will invade Asgard, so the seat of the gods. I am sure that with Vedrfolnir you will go like this in a couple of minutes.
Why? Why? Oh, that's why.
Now, I won't lie, Vedrfolnir has been the one giving me most of my headaches lately, and not just because of his connections with some character that I hadn't to main since my first day in Genshin, but also because he's been the one that I struggled the most to fit in my theory as I started to think of the Ragnarok as the possible underlying theme that could link all 5 sinners together. And yet, he's also the one who most directly talked about a possible end of the world, or at least about an end of time. The only other character that we ever heard talk of an era beyond time is probably Fischl, but she's fictional, isn't she? So she doesn't really count. Or does she? I don't know. Anyway, Vedrfolnir proved really tricky to look into. What I'd like to do now is to kind of introduce you, to lead you through my own thought process, and you can let me know if you find it good or not. But anyway, at the very least, you will see how I try to work when delving behind Genshin references. And to be honest, it's really not that different from what I did as an archaeology scholar. So, first of all, I just googled the name, and of course I found the Wikipedia page, and here's what it says. So, Vedrfolnir is a name attested in the Gylfaginning, that's the first half of the Prose Edda, a manuscript on Norse myths and sagas from the 13th century. And the name is given to a hawk that is said to live between the eyes of the eagle that sits on top of the Yggdrasil or Irminsul. And the hawk is also said to be all-knowing. And although this could well fit with Vedrfolnir's title in the game, so the Visionary, I don't know, something didn't sit quite well with me for two main reasons. So firstly, the Gylfaginning is the only source that actually knows of this hawk. All other sources that talk about the animals that live in and around the Yggdrasil never mention this hawk, just the eagle. Secondly, let's say I just found it strange, even for a myth, to have a bird sitting on top of another bird. I don't know, that just seemed out of place. And lo and behold, on the same Wikipedia page, I found out that some scholars have actually proposed to sort of drop off the hawk completely and just consider Vedrfolnir to be the name of the eagle, that otherwise has no recorded name in any of the sources, even in the Gylfaginning itself. But I hear you. How can we just choose to take an element and write it off completely? I mean, that's not very professional, is it? So yes and no. You see, this core theme of a tree of life with a bird of prey and on top and a serpent or dragon at the bottom has been identified as one of the core myths in the European mythology, and you can find it across all of Europe and Asia in different versions. You can find it in Indian mythology, in Persian mythology, in Caucasian mythology, in Hungarian mythology even, and of course in Norse mythology. And each culture kind of adapts the core myths to its own belief system, to its own surroundings, and so on. So what happens is that the core elements stay, while the details may vary by quite a bit. Sometimes later down in history, an official version of the myth is created. It's often a written version, just like poetic and prose Eddas were for the Vikings, and in so doing, different versions of the myths get stitched together literally, and sometimes the results are quite awkward, and that's what we technically call a conflation. So what's likely to have happened here is that some versions of the Yggdrasil myth had an eagle on top and some others had a hawk, and when someone put them all together, we suddenly had a hawk on top of an eagle. So it's reasonable to just say, listen, it's probably just an eagle. But I hear you, even if Vedrfolnir is indeed an eagle and not a hawk, how does all of that link him to the Ragnarok? Well, why don't we have a look at how Ragnarok is described in the sources, in the Norse sources. So, we have a pretty good descriptions of the events that are set to unfold during the Ragnarok in two main sources. One is the Voluspà, that's the first poem in the Poetic Edda, and the other is the Gylfaginning again, that mostly cites the Voluspà, but also adds a few details. But for now, even though those details will be interesting later on, let's just stick to the Voluspà text. I promise you there will be some pretty interesting bits, and not just about Vedrfolnir. So, out of the rather lengthy description you can find in the Voluspà, I found two stanzas in particular that are pretty interesting from a Genshin perspective. The first one is stanza 50 and the second one is stanza 52 and maybe also 57, but we'll talk about that later. I will leave you the link to the full text in both in Old Norse and English anyway, so if you have time and find any other interesting elements that can be related to the Genshin, don't hesitate to let me know. Anyway, starting with stanza 50, we have this. From the east comes Rim, with shield held high, in giant wrath does the serpent writhe, o'er the waves he twists, and the tawny eagle gnaws corpses, screaming, Naglfar is loose. Now, quite a lot of elements here. Rim is actually the name of an ice giant that will lead the ice giant invasion of the earth. Both the fire giants and the ice giants are said to conquer the earth during the Ragnarok. We don't have any ice giants for now in Genshin, but who knows, maybe in Snezhnaya we will. Now, what comes next blew my mind completely, because this serpent that twists over the waves is actually Jörmungandr. Jörmungandr is the giant serpent, the giant Ouroboros that encircles the earth and protects it from, wait for it, the primordial ocean that exists outside of the earth and prevents it from flooding the world. And that's exactly what happens during the Ragnarok. One of the first signs is that the level of the waters will suddenly rise. Doesn't it sound awfully familiar? I don't know about you guys, I'm having flashbacks from version 4.2. Next we get this tawny eagle that gnaws corpses, screaming. And there's a number of interesting things about this eagle. First of all, we do have an eagle, guys. There's our eagle in the Ragnarok. And she is often identified as another eagle in Norse mythology, that's Resvelgr. In Norse mythology, she creates the winds, but a lot of scholars would like to identify her as one of and the same with the eagle that sits on top of the Yggdrasil, because, well, it's quite obvious, right? You are on top of a tree. To have a bird that generates winds on top of a tree, it makes sense. And the other interesting thing is how she is described as tawny pale. The Norse term is actually Nithfölr, and I don't know if you can see it, but Fölr is actually from the very same root as Vedrfolnir. It's the word polra in Norse, and it means to grow pale, to decay. So Nithfölnir, Nith is actually a term that's used to indicate the waning of the moon. And Vedrfolnir, on the other hand, remember the eagle that generates the wind? Vedrfolnir literally means the one that's consumed, withered by the Vedr, the winds. And I wonder, remember how Dainsleif actually has kind of a quarrel with the animal arc, and I wonder if his brother actually had some beef with Venti too. What do you think, guys? Could this be a thing? So, going on, the other interesting bit is this term slithr. That's the corpses in the English text. I found that most translators go with corpses, but what I find interesting is that if this eagle is really the one that sits on top of the Yggdrasil, If you go find this slitr in the Norse dictionary, you'll find that the literal meaning is this: tatters. And I wonder, could they be like the pieces of the Yggdrasil that said to wither and decay at the moment of the Ragnarok? So does this eagle rather pick on the Yggdrasil dead branches? Because it would be quite, I don't know, it would stick quite well with what our Vedrfolnir is doing. I don't know if I'm going overboard, guys, but just a suggestion. I'm just going to throw in there and see. That's all I could find about Vedrfolnir, but honestly, guys, if any of this gets confirmed in game, it's pretty sick. It would say a lot about how far Genshin developers are willing to go when it comes to references, and I will like this a lot. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe I'm going too far, but who knows? So there are two more stanzas actually that are quite interesting. In stanza 52 we get another reference to our last sinner, Surtalogi. So Surt fares from the south with the scourge of branches, the son of the battle gods shone from his sword. So the last verse is the only reference in the Voluspà to Surtalogi. Surtalogi actually means literally the fire of Surt. Surt means probably black, as in soot, or in any residue that get left after a fire. And the other interesting thing regarding Surtalogi, Surt, and all of this is this phrase here, scourge of branches, because didn't we have Kale dreaming about the Irminsul catching fire a couple of nations ago? How do we feel about this? Could this also get referenced in Genshin? I don't know. I find it pretty interesting. And so much so that I think I will save the rest of my thoughts for the next video. So, that's all for today. I hope you liked this long and complicated ride. Let me know what you think, your personal theories and everything. I will try and upload the rest as soon as I can. In the meantime, have a nice day, y'all, and see you soon.